we accomplished the desired bouncing animation that we wanted using the spring animation type. But I like it to be faster than that. If you notice, the spring animation takes some time to be done, and the word sits on the edge for a while. So if we need more control over that, we can use a different type of animation. We can use the timing animation. Let's check what the default for the timing animation look like, just without any configuration. So now it's actually going too fast, but there is no weight on the edge, which is excellent. So we can control this a little bit further. We can change the duration. So instead of making it go really fast, let's make the duration 1 second. So this means don't move too fast. Take 1 full second to go from 0 to 100. So let's test that out. So now this is much better. It takes 1 full second to go to the edge. You see that? Now between 0 and 100, React Native would use some kind of easing function to define how to transition from 0 to 100. For example, there is a linear transition. There are some transitions where you can start fast, go slow, end fast, or start slow, go fast, end slow. These are the different easing functions that we have. So let me show you some of those. We'll need to import easing from React Native. And we need to specify an easing here in the animated configuration. Let me format that. And in here we can specify easing as easing dot one of the functions. For example, I think the default is just ease. This is what we're using right now. Let's check that out. You can do something like bounce, for example. So this would define a different motion. So now it is bouncing on the edge, as you can see. The simplest easing is linear. So just go from 0 to 1 in a linear fashion without any movement up and down. And you can actually combine easings if you want to make for complicated motions. I kind of like the default motion because as you can notice, it goes slow, fast, and then slow, which I think is appropriate for this particular animation. We hard-coded this 100 pixels on the screen, and it's working for us in this particular device. But if we get a bigger device or a smaller device, that 100 might not be appropriate. We can actually see this problem if we rotate the device. We can go to hardware here and change the orientation to landscape right. And now you can see the problem. The word is not really bouncing between the edges, but rather just 100 pixels on the screen. So how do we fix this problem? How do we make this animation appropriate for any screen size? We can use the dimensions library. React Native has a dimensions library. We can import that, dimensions, just like that. And this dimensions library can be used to read the width of the screen. This is how we do it. We do dimensions.get window.width. This will give me the width of the screen. And of course, you can read the height of the screen if you need to. So every time we animate the title, we're going to read the width of the screen. Let's store that in a constant. Call this width, just like that. And instead of 100, we can make this number relevant to the width. For example, we can try the width value itself and see how that looks. It's now going beyond the edges of the screen. We actually need half the width. So let's see how that looks. So this is a little bit better, but it is still going a little bit beyond the edge of the screen. And this is because we're not accounting for the width of the word itself. So let's try to subtract the value from the width to account for that. Test that. Better, but still maybe 150. Let's test that. So now it is perfectly going from one edge to the other. And now if we change the orientation, even while this animation is happening, the to value is going to adjust itself to the appropriate edges of this particular screen. So this code will now work on any screen size. So now we can put back the Ajax fetching, and that would make this animation only happening while we're loading the initial deals. We have a small problem in this code that we need to solve before moving on. Basically, this is an infinite loop. we did not stop this loop anywhere. So we need an exit condition for this loop. We can see the problem by maybe console logging something here and checking how this is going to be fired indefinitely. So in the debugger here, you'll notice that there is a console log line that is going on and on and on and on. So how do we solve this problem? The animated view was actually unmounted, but our code does not account for that because it is animating just a value. However, this start callback here receives an object, and this object has a property named finished. So I'm going to destructure this finished property from this object. And basically, if the animation was successful, the finished property is going to be true. But if the animation was interrupted for any reason, this finished will be false. So unmounting the animated component will cause the animation to be interrupted. So all we need to do to stop the infinite loop is an if statement here that basically checks on the finished attribute. If the previous animation was finished successfully, go ahead and start a new animation. But if the previous animation did not finish successfully, it will not start a new animation. So let me go ahead and format everything. And now we can test. You will not see the console log going on and on because the animation was stopped. So let me clear this console log line. What we need to understand next to implement the swiping feature is how to work with gestures. React Native has a built-in API for recognizing touch gestures. It's called PanResponder. We'll explore that in the next video.